Hey folks, today we're doing a how to play for the 1 to 4 player The Last Aurora by Pendragon Games. It's all coming up right after this. Hey folks, this is Pecktec and we received this game last week. This is a Kickstarter backed in 2019, I think. The theme of this game is you and your caravan are making your way across a frozen, post-apocalyptic wasteland on your way to the icebreaker Aurora. It's passing through, it sent out a radio signal, and you're trying to get there before anyone else because there's a limited amount of space, and apparently this icebreaker is going to take you to a better place where it's a bit easier to live post-apocalypse. The goal of the game is to get you and your caravan across this wasteland map. The person that gets there first triggers the end of the game, and then you start counting up points. And we'll get to all that in just a minute. What you're going to see set up here today, I've set up for a 2-player game, and I'm also using these optional components which replace the wooden pieces with miniatures, because miniatures. The rulebook for this is fairly straightforward. If you're just playing a normal game, there's about 12 pages of rules. The back is sort of a description of all the different icons that go on some of these cards. This is a mostly card-driven game. There are several other components too, but they're not really like holding your hand cards. Like you're not going to have a whole hand of cards. You're more adding to, let's call it a tableau here on the bottom. After you get past the rules, there is an appendix that describes each of the different possible cards that you might encounter, and then it goes on to describe solo play. I did not end up needing really any of this appendix. I thought it was sort of, well, the cards were self-explanatory, and I didn't really have to delve into that. This game also includes a solo mode, which again, I have not played yet, but it looks fun. It's a little Automa deck like you might have seen on Scythe and Wingspan and stuff like that. That's it. The rules are pretty concise. There's no index, but things are broken down into phases, so it's kind of easy to find what you're looking for. Let's go ahead and just start with the setup. All right, let's go ahead and get set up. First thing we're going to notice is the map. The map does have an A and a B side, and I want to mention that I'm using a optional neoprene map that was available during the Kickstarter and will probably be available in retail too. The neoprene only has the A side, but the map that comes with the game also has this, which is the B side. It's got a few different obstacles and other things along the way. Also, these optional actions at the bottom are a little bit different. We'll go over what that means in terms of the A map in just a second. First thing we're going to do with this is we're going to set up the waypoints. If you look along the way here, there are some areas with like a little bit different shading on the cities as they go through. And we're going to put these little waypoints on here. And what we like to do is we take them and we mix them up, and then we'll just flip them over and go ahead and put them down in the little areas that they go. The first time I shot this video, I actually had a camera malfunction right about at this point. And if you notice in the video later on that you see a bunch of this map with a bunch of them like this, with this side up, just ignore that. They are supposed to be like so. You just kind of reveal them and put them on all the little spots on the map where it's shaded. And that's the way it should look at the end. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to take the Aurora. This is the icebreaker we're trying to get to. We're going to put it in the first position right here to indicate that it's just arrived in the little towns that it's going to go through. We're supposed to randomly determine play order, and we'll go over how this works in just a minute. So just whatever makes sense to you guys, go ahead and do that. And take one of your cars and put them there. And of course, the other 2 cars are going to go, for a 2-player game that is, are going to go into the first city right here. The next thing you're going to do is shuffle the outcome cards And we're going to set these off to the side. These outcome cards are what we'll use to determine whether or not we hit or we miss, and whether or not the enemies hit or miss when they shoot at us or we shoot at them. It also picks the winner. We'll explain this a little bit further on, but down here at the bottom, this picks the winner of the loot that the bad guys are carrying. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to set up an exploration deck. These will be cards that we'll find. These are items that we'll be able to pick up along the way as we make our way across the frozen wasteland. But there are some special cards. You'll note inside the decks there are these cards. Oops, we're upside down. You'll see a bunch of cards with the star on the side. These are a little bit different cards. Sometimes they're better, sometimes they're worse. But you'll see a number of these with like the little orange star in the corner. And they have numbers on the back, just like these sets of cards. Depending on the player count, you're going to stick a certain amount of these cards in. I've already put the cards in. But what you'll do is you'll shuffle these. You know, there's ones, there's twos and threes in here. And you'll go ahead and add them in here without looking at which ones are which, according to this chart. And the rest just get put aside for another game when you want to mix it up a little bit and change it out. Once you put your cards in here and kind of got this all sorted out, we're just going to take the 1, put it on top of the 2. We're going to take the 2, put it on top of the 3. And now you've got your exploration deck all set up, and we're going to just kind of put it off to the side here. It's ready to go. The next cards we're going to look at are the loot deck. This is basically what's going to pop up whenever we go to fight an enemy. This will determine how many hits they get. And on the back of these are little prizes that you can get, little things that you can grab off of them when you defeat them in battle. So it's pretty cool. But you'll notice here in the corner, they're kind of set by time period. There's 1 to 2, 3 to 4, and 5 to 6. There's not many of these cards, and because there's not actually a lot of bad guys to fight along the way. I don't know if we've ever actually gotten all the way through this. Like I said, we've only played twice. But you're going to shuffle the ones of the same type, like these 1s and 2s and 3s and 4s and stuff. You're going to shuffle those, and you're going to put them in order, just like you see here. And then they're going to go off to the side over here. The next set of cards that we're going to deal with are the object cards. And this is what they look like. These contain all sorts of little goodies that are going to help you along the way. You can only have 3 of these at a time on your tableau. There's a little space for it right there. But we'll be discovering these as we go along. There's a number of different ways to get these. And we'll be getting these as we go. We're going to want to shuffle these. There is an optional card with a landmine. And it's got a little bit different rules. It's got its own little set of rules in the rule book, but it is an optional card that you can remove. And in fact, they recommend in the setup that you remove this card until maybe you've played a few times. So once these cards are all shuffled up, they go right over here. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to take these trailers, and these are starting items. You can tell because they have an S on the back of them. So they sort of look like these cards, but they have an S on the back of them. So we're going to take these 2 rusty trailers, rusty container trailers, and we're going to set them in the first 2 spots of the exploration deck. You'll see across the top here, these are all the slots that we'll be filling. And in fact, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and fill these in with items. Looks like we got a bunch of toppers for the trailers. So we got another type of trailer, some things that go on top, and these 2 rusty ones. These will be our starting items that we can shop from. As the game goes on, these things will be picked up, and as they are, you're going to drop another one down. There are a number of different kinds of cards, and we'll go over that in just a second. But if they have anything that you need to add to them, at that point you'll go ahead and add them to the card. Like if they contain resources or something that you can pick up, you can go ahead and add those to the card. Some cards have a little exclamation point, which means that an event takes place, and you'll have to resolve that as soon as it comes up as well. The next thing that happens is the players choose their color. Like the beginning of most board games, you're going to pick the color that you're going to be. You'll have 2 starting cards, a leader and a co-pilot. Again, they have the S on the back to help you remember that they're starting cards, and of course they're marked at the top for the red color because you're the red player. Another 2 starting items you'll have is a truck and a trailer. You'll want to get one of these player boards, and you want to get these 3 chits. You've got 2 target chits, and you've got this kind of fame counter here. You'll also get your 2 people. These represent the people that you have on your convoy. And of course, everybody will get 3 starting items, which is the gas can, some bullets, and some food. And here you'll see player 2 is the exact same setup. The artwork is different, but the rules on the bottom are the same. All these characters, especially as you encounter new characters in here, will have different rules, but the leaders and the co-pilot are the same across the board. So everybody starts off with basically the same setup. Most of the other counters are going to be stored over here on the side, and the neoprene mat's got a little black area to do this, but just find a place to store all the different little counters and things that you're going to use during the game. Alright, so let's talk a little bit about these slots at the bottom of the cards. First of all, just a little tour around like a truck card. Like this particular tracked truck, this is something that you can pick up along the way. You'll see that it's got a little icon here. This means it has tracks. And the ones that have tracks can take little shortcuts on the map. Like here's the first one that you'll see. So you can skip that town and go straight through here if you happen to have that logo. And I wanted to point out that the back of the book explains what all of these things mean, but this is kind of a little quickie guide. Right here is the speed of your vehicle, and that's how many spaces or little cities it can move along the map. Right here is a weapon, and this indicates which line you're going to look at when you pull an outcome card and try to determine if you've hit or not. Like that would be a miss on this particular one. Over here on the side, you'll see that it's a truck card, and this tells you how many trailers it can pull behind it. You'll also encounter cards that are basically the top of a vehicle. They fit right on top here. This particular one has armor. You can't put anything inside of these slots except bullet holes. So what they're there to do is kind of absorb damage so you don't get damage in some of your other vital areas. You'll notice there are empty spots here. But this one's got a little gray person on the side of it. They also have some that are made specifically for gas cans and food cans and bullets and so forth. What this means is that slot can only be filled by one of your crewmen. So the only thing you can put in there is a crew. If it's blank like this, you can put literally anything in there. If you go to take a hit, and we'll go over how you know where you take a hit, you might have to cover a slot up. Every now and then you might jam your gun when you shoot, and you just cover it up with a broken, or this little bullet hole indicates that something's broken. Sometimes when you go to take damage, all your spots are filled, and you might be forced to drop out whatever's in there and put a damage token there to replace it. There's a fair amount of these that have little special spots, little special actions, and what this indicates is a special power that vehicle has. Like, for instance, here is a +1 to the speed. If you take damage there, you can't do whatever's underneath it. So if you took a hit here on your gun, you can't shoot. And a hit here means that special +1 speed will not count. Feel free to fill these empty cargo boxes with whatever you want, be it food, bullets, or gas. You can only put one single item in each cargo box. You can move things around if you like. If maybe you had this up above this truck and you wanted to kind of move one of your guys up there, you can do that. And that's sort of the basics of the placement rules. Remember that you can move your stuff around as you need it. Like if you want to make some space here or there, you can move crew members around if you want to. As long as you stick to the specific rules, one item in there, no items in these special areas, and the appropriate items in areas where it's shaded for a very specific type of item. Right, so now you're all set up, and ready to play, but this game is broken down into specific phases, and phase 1 is the exploration phase. If we look back up here at the turn order map, you'll see that exploration turns go this way, and movement turns go the opposite way. So the first player in the exploration phase is going to be the person all the way over here. So green player is going to go, and they're going to pick up one of their explorers. And you'll see on top of your explorers, there's going to be a number. Your co-pilot's fairly weak with a 1, and your leader is one of the more powerful people in the game with a 3 on the top. And you'll notice that it corresponds to these numbers here across the top of these cards. Basically what that means is only a person with this kind of score can come up. So green player decides that they just got to have the hermit. So they're going to come up here. Their leader's going to grab the hermit. Hermit is a character that you're going to add to your convoy. And when you pick up a character from the exploration track, they're going to go right here into your rest zone. We'll explain this in just a second. But we're also going to pick up an icon to match a person that's in your convoy, and we're going to throw them onto your convoy here into an empty spot. So now your truck is basically full. You are full of items right now. The leader has a special ability that when they go to explore, they get to skip this, which is basically them recuperating from their adventure, and they can go straight to here. Whenever you pick something from one of these slots, you have the option of doing the thing at the top. And most of these are very helpful. Remove a radiation or repair an item. Anytime you've got something with one of these bullet holes in there, they can be fixed with this these little wrenches icon. The next one lets you heal 2 radiation contamination issues. And the next one lets you do 2 repairs. After that, you can get food or you can get bullets, but you do have to take 1 damage as you take those. And here you can get gas if you're willing to be contaminated. That contamination is going to go, it's represented by this disc here. And that if we chose to take a gas can, which we don't have room for one right now, but if we chose to take that gas can, whoever went exploring will have to take a radiation. What this does is it lowers this by 1. So while this is on there, this is a 2. If you would ever have more contamination or equal contamination to their number, then they would die and be taken out of the game. But he doesn't need gas. He's not going to do that now, so we don't have to worry about it for this turn. Now, whenever a card is picked out, like if someone had grabbed this one here, one of these rusty containers, the other cards slide down to fill the void, and then you just pick this up and replace it with more cards. Just deal them right off the top, and they come down. There are a few different types of cards that you can get. Of course, we've got equipment like the tops of the vehicles with different items and the different trucks and stuff that you can get, and different types of trailers and things that you can attach to the back of your caravan. But another thing that you might come in contact with are these little areas where you can explore. And when these come out, you'll see little icons like that, and you're going to immediately fill these up with the items that are indicated on the picture. You go ahead and take their matching icons. And when you go to explore one of these, you can pick one side or the other. You can take that loot, but you also have to take whatever consequences up here at the top. In this case, it would be a radiation. So let's pretend red team has already picked up this trailer already. They sent the co-pilot over there to get the first trailer. These move down. And now the leader would like to go and collect some food. He's got a 3. He's more than able to do that. So he's going to say, okay, I'll take the food and the gas. You can go ahead and add those here. But this area is irradiated. So he's going to take a little bit of contamination. Go ahead and add that contamination to his card. And because of his special rule for the leader, he can go straight to the rested area. One more thing to note on these exploration cards, if for any reason like somebody comes along and they decide to take the gas cans, and then they do their action at the top. After that happens, this card is discarded back over to the discard pile. And then the cards are moved down as you normally would, revealing a new exploration card. There are a number of different cards that can come up. You can refer to the rule book if there's something that I don't cover. There's another thing called an event. They're fairly rare though. I think I've only seen, it's only popped up one time. So you won't see them a lot. They have a little exclamation point in the corner. Another kind of card that you might get are some baddies. These are like roving bandits that can attack you during the game. And they'll come up out of this deck. There's a bunch of them in there. And I'm just going to lay this one down. If one of these ends up in your row, you can't go here. You can't go here to do the extra action here at the top. And that can be kind of frustrating, especially if you really needed some food or something like that and you can't get there because you can't go here. This guy is going to attack you later on in the round, so you can't actually go here. We'll go over everything that's involved in one of these attacks here in just a minute. Another thing to keep in mind is you can't go to, like this one for instance, you couldn't go here and just do the repairs. You always have to take the card or take what's on the card, and then you have the option to do this part at the top. If you're out of people, if there's nobody here to go explore, you always have the option to pass. In fact, even if you chose not to take one of your people over, you have the option to pass and not go to explore. One more concept to remember is if you've got a character, you can increase this number by 1 just by adding some food. So suddenly she's a 2 and could go up here and do any of these actions under 2. And that's basically what food does. Well, it actually does 2 things, and they're marked here. So here you can discard a food to add to their number here at the top. The other thing you can do with food actually takes place in the next phase, and let's go to that now. Phase 2 is the rest phase. You can also discard a food token, as it indicates here, to move this person on down here. If you don't do that, they'll remain up here and they won't get to come back. Anybody that's in this zone in the rest phase can come back over here. Everybody you bring back over here is going to get to do their actions, all the special things that they can do in the remaining turn. So if you decided you didn't want to spend a can, they would remain up here at the top. And these guys would come over, whoever's over on this side, and then they would come down here until the next round. While they're over here, you can't do any of their special abilities, and they're kind of just sitting in the back of the caravan, resting up and waiting for the next round. Now, after you go through all the phases, on the next rest phase, they would then be available to come back over, and you'd have them for the movement phase of the next round. So it's always handy to keep some food over so you can kind of get them on down into here, so in the rest phase they can come over and be available for that round. Another thing to kind of explain as we go on is the fame track. This will move up for a number of different things, mostly from shooting bad guys. But you can move your little star up one at a time here, and what this indicates are points at the end of the game. It's going to be 1 point at the end of the game, 2 points, and 3 points, and so on. Another thing to note is a little bullet hole here at the bottom and a repair symbol at the top. Anytime you get up here, you automatically get to make a repair, but you can also drop down the fame track, and anytime you get down here, you're going to take a bullet wound. Alright, now we're down to the movement phase, and what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at our car's speed, which is 2. Sometimes there'll be bonus speeds over here, but your basic car just starts with 2. And our co-pilot was able to rest and come back over, so you'll notice that it adds a +1 to the speed. You must pay a gas in order to move. You don't have to move, however. You can choose to just keep your gas and stay if you wanted to. Oh, the other thing to note too is that the turn order goes this way when you determine who moves first. So red's going to move first, and they're going to go 1, 2, 3. And they're going to land on this little mystery box and take it. So we're going to put that over there. We're going to claim our mystery box. These have all kinds of little items in them, and they tell you when you can use them, and there's a big variety of different things to kind of help you out. You can have 3 of them in your tableau, and I'm just going to store that right here. It's important to note that the only way to get these is to land on them, and they go away once you claim them, unless it's radiation. If it's radiation, then it just stays there. If I was to land on a radiation, I would have to just pick one of my characters and give them a little contamination. When you receive contamination, of course, it reduces this number up here. If that number would ever be reduced, like if I had to contaminate her for some reason, that would reduce this to 0, and then they would just be dead. Now it's the other player's turn to move. As you see, they're the second here in the turn order. And at least when you start off, you're going to have the exact same equipment as the other person. So they've got the same car with a movement of 2. They've got a co-pilot, which gives them +1. They can pay some gas to go ahead and move. And they're at 1, 2, 3. If you end in the same space as the other person, then this doesn't change. If somehow they were able to go 1 further, they would take their little waypoint if you land on it, and then you'd reevaluate this, and then suddenly it would be like so. The movement phase is pretty quick and simple. The next one is the fire weapons phase, and what's going to happen is we're going to get ambushed by these baddies that showed up in the exploration deck. The first thing that happens is we read the bottom of it, and this tells us this is them kind of jumping out of the snow or appearing over a snowdrift and attacking us. This says each convoy receives 1 damage in the top portion. Well, as we look at our convoys, neither one of us has any of these top portion cards installed yet. At some point in the game, you might install something like this. And if I'd had one of those already, and this particular ambush had come up, I would have to put a damage right here. Now, after that's sorted out, we're going to take it up here to the top, and you'll notice on the map that there are regions. There are 3 regions, and we're going to put it up here, and then we're going to pull one of these cards here, and what you do is you cover it based on the amount of players. So if you're playing a 2-player game like this, it's going to look something like that. And that's how much damage you have to do to take them out. If you got a 3-player game, it's going to be like this, and a 4-player game, it just comes in here next to it. Alright, so now I'm set for my 2-player game. And you go in turn order. So with red still ahead, he gets to attack first. If I look here at my gun, I've got a 1. So I'm going to take a bullet. I'm going to spend it on the gun. Sometimes you can just put that there just to remind yourself that you've spent it. You can only shoot once with any given weapon. You can shoot multiple times if you have different weapons attached to your caravan, but you can only shoot each weapon once, and you have to have some bullets to do it. So I like to put it here to indicate that I've used that, both that resource and that particular gun. So once you've spent your resource and you picked your gun, you're going to pop this over and have a look. When I look here at the top, for 1, just like the gun, I've done 1 damage. So I'm going to take one of these bullets, and I'm going to set it here. I also take one of the targets off my board, and I'm going to put it in the leftmost slot, which is A, right here. I'll explain why we do that in just a minute. If you do manage to cause a hit on one of the attackers, one of the bandits that pops up, every time you cause a hit, you get to move this up. And now we come over here to the green side, and they're going to take their bullet and they're going to spend it. They also have a 1 on their truck. They come over here, they flip it over, and their 1 also does 1 damage. Go ahead and discard these. We add 1 damage here. Okay, so now they are dead. We're going to add their target to the leftmost part right here. So now I've got A and they have B. But let's see who gets the loot. We flip over another card, and we look at the bottom here, and it says A. So A team gets the loot. We're going to flip that over and have a look. Oh, it's not on this card. Flip this loot card over and have a look. And we got a brand new trailer. We're going to take that and immediately install that on top of my caravan here in just an open spot. If you didn't have an open spot, you can swap it out, or you can just lay it on top. This is what we've been doing. But you can swap this out if you don't have enough room and you'd rather have this. Or if you don't want it, of course, you can discard it. You might note that this one has a star on it, which means it's going to be an extra point at the end of the game. And a lot of the loot that you get is going to have extra points at the end of the game. So you really want to go for it. You also take your targets back and you hand it back to put them back in the spots where they go. Now the person that didn't get the loot doesn't completely miss out because they get one of these object cards. These object cards are also worth a point at the end of the game, but they have special things that they allow you to do. And what you do is you kind of just secretly keep this and stick it right here. Now there's another scenario that comes up, and that is, let's say player 2 missed, and there's only one hit on there. If we leave them alive, then they're going to get to take a shot back. And this will affect everybody that's in this region. So if somebody had wandered on over to the next part, they would not be taking part in the things that happen over here. And that's why I think on the map they've separated this out. You can have any number of people in a particular region too. But okay, now it's their time to shoot. So we've accidentally let them live, and now they're going to shoot. This same outcome cards go for them. And if you look at the top of their cards, these enemies have numbers indicating their power. And they correspond here. So the enemy would do 1 damage. So that would be 1 damage to me. And I can put it anywhere I want. It's non-specific. So I'll just stick it up here in the armor. And 1 damage over here. And she can just stick that right there in an empty spot. These baddies will stay there in this state until they're dealt with, until that final blow is done. It's important to note too that there are 3 areas here. And as the enemies pop up, they're going to pop up in whatever area the lead car is in. So if this car had managed to make it all the way to here, then these enemies would have popped up in this zone. And then only they would be dealing with them, and the red car would be thankfully free of any harassment. And the same is true if there were some baddies that were unfinished over here that hadn't been fully dealt with on this side, and green had managed to make their way over to the next zone, and there were no bad guys to add up in the next ambush, then red would be dealing with these, and green would have no one to fight over here. And this is a state that can be evaluated each time you get to the fire weapons phase. And now that we've fired our weapons and defended ourselves from the bandits, it's time for the end of the round. The first thing I like to do to signify the end of the round is go ahead and move the Aurora icebreaker up to the next city. So now we're on 2. If it should arrive at 6, that will trigger the end of the game. These other numbers over here, I think there are some event cards that can kind of jump their Aurora up, making it a really long trek to try and get to it. The next thing you're going to do at the end of the round is deal with these cards. Now, in a 2-player game, you want to make it so that there's only 2 cards starting from over here, so we would remove these. Remember, you might have some blanks if there were some enemies to fight. Then we're going to take these cards and we're going to move them on down in whatever state they're in. On down. And then we'll go ahead and pull more cards and just fill in the empty spots all the way down. And we've got some more stuff to go and explore and pick up. Then we go back up here to the explore phase, and it all starts again, except this time, now that they've switched positions, red's going to go first in the explore phase, and then green will go first in the movement phase. So if in a round of the game in the movement phase, you're able to move your vehicle to the same port that the Aurora is in, or perhaps a little further down the way, and then let's say
your opponent moves along with you. That triggers the end of the game. Once you get to their port or beyond their port, it triggers the end of the game. Now, you might want to go beyond the port simply for the fact that you're going to get 1 point for each city difference between you and your enemy, however further along you are. So, in this case, green would have 1, 2, 3 points extra. There are a few other ways to get points. Basically, anywhere you see a star is another way to get points. So on your fame track here, they've gotten to 2, so that would be 2 more points. You're also going to get a point. You see the star here, you're going to get a point for every one of these item cards that you happen to have. Many of these cards that you encounter are going to have like little indicators for points, and you can get the points for that so long as it's not damaged. If there's no damage counter on it, you can get that point. Some characters that you come by along the way can also give you points. And you're going to get a point for each uncontaminated character that you have in your party. So that would be another 1, 2, 3 for them. If they did have contamination on them, you would not be able to collect the points for that particular character. Now, if neither player reached the Aurora before I got to 6, most of the rest of the points would be the same. You do not get the points for the survivors that are left. Instead, you get the points for all the cards in your caravan that you have that don't have damage. So it'd be 1, 2, 3 versus 1, 2, as there's a damage on here. And you don't count the survivors because they didn't make it to the boat. And that's it. That's how to play the Last Aurora.
And that's it. You should know enough now to go forth through the wasteland, cause some mayhem. Holly and I have really enjoyed this game. We've only played a few times, but we really enjoyed many different aspects of this game. I'll do a full review after I've gotten a chance to kind of delve into here a little bit deeper. I want to try some of the other modes and some of the other extra things that came with the game. Our first game took maybe 2 hours to play, starting from scratch and basically reading the rule book. Maybe 2.5 hours if we count the little extra reading now and then. When I received this game, there were no playthroughs in English, and there were no how to play videos, which is why I made this one. If you like this video, please hit the thumbs up, and feel free to subscribe. I bring forth all kinds of interesting games that I picked up on Kickstarter. This is one of dozens of games that I've got to talk about. And I'll be back to talk about them real soon. Until we meet again, have fun playing games, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.